Hey, what's good, guys? I'm so happy to announce that I'm finally going to go back to more regular topics concerning like what the channel is supposed to be about and stuff like that. Because I know I've been rambling on about men's mental health and some stuff about some court cases going on in the world and stuff. But I want to go back to talking about women and flirting and dating and all that good shit, man. And along with that, I'm so happy to announce I'm bringing back the intro. I'm so hyped, bro.
Ooh, Joshua!
Bravo, todo un hombre.
I love that intro, bro. I love that intro so much. It's such a good intro. I'm so happy I have it. Love it. Absolutely love it. But yeah, man. Today, what I really wanted to talk about, though, was how important just having confidence is, man. If there was like a tier list or like a list of maybe like things I would put in like an order of like one being the most important down to like 10 being like the least important of top 10 or top 5 or top 3 things you got to have when it comes to approaching women, talking to women, whether it's online or offline, preferably though. I mean, I am talking about in real life. Like I am talking about offline, like actually approaching women in the real world, college campuses, whatever, man. When it comes to that, I really think the number one thing is confidence. No bullshit, right? I have a bunch of shit in like kind of like a notepad, kind of where I write down like methods to boost confidence and methods to like make sure you have more confidence because confidence is the number one thing when it comes down to approaching a stranger for the first time or approaching a woman for the first time. And I also kind of have a little bit of a story to go along with it. I've approached upwards of like 30 to like 40 women. I've approached like a lot of women, and I feel like I've gotten like relatively pretty good at it. And I've gotten a lot of numbers, like a ton of numbers I couldn't even count. Probably like, what I say, like 40 approaches. I've probably gotten like 30 numbers, 32 numbers, 25 numbers or so, you know. And most of the times when I don't get a number, it's just because the girl has a boyfriend. And that's just, it is what it is. Like, you can't predict that. It's random, You approach random people, they're going to have random circumstances, so you can't predict that. But I feel like I've gotten relatively pretty good at it. I'd say that confidence is definitely the number one thing. Absolutely number one thing. And I actually have a story a couple days ago. I think it was about a couple days ago or so. I was downtown in my in Boston, in like a major city. That's another thing I recommend, going to like a major city. Don't go to like some small town or like some little like shopping plaza. Like go to like a place where lots of people are gonna be. A major city, or like a mall where tons of people are gonna be there is definitely the way to go. And I was down in Boston. I was walking around, doing my thing. I went to the Boston Common Park. I was chilling, doing my thing, all that. And for whatever reason, the two biggest roadblocks I had that day were I didn't have like enough confidence to approach women that day because I was a little bit rusty. I don't do this every fucking day. You know what I mean? I have a life. I don't do this every day. I probably do it like once a month maybe. So, I was a little bit rusty. I just didn't have the confidence I needed. And the lack of confidence was leading me to overthinking. That's one of the biggest things I notice is if you don't have confidence, the opposite of confidence becomes anxiety. It becomes, being nervous. It becomes being anxious. That's the opposite of confidence. And when you're nervous, when you're anxious, right, it leads to overthinking and it leads to questioning. And then when you start overthinking and questioning what you're going to say, what you're going to do, this, that, and the third, you end up just not approaching them. This happened to me like I'd say about 2 times because I only really saw about 2 women I wanted to approach. Sorry, 3. I'll get to that later. But it happened to me twice. I did end up approaching somebody, but about 2 times it happened to me where I basically just kept overthinking. I would sit at a bar and there was this girl and she was a little bit away from me, but she was sitting at the bar and she was alone and I wanted to go up and talk to her, but I kept overthinking and kept thinking about like, what should I say? What should I do? Would it be too awkward? Would it be too weird? There's like a dude sitting 2 seats away from her. Like, what if he overhears me and he thinks I'm cringe or something? And I kept like overthinking it, you know what I mean? And I ended up just not doing it. And then I think there was a second time where there was like a girl who was like standing around with like an e-scooter, and I thought she was pretty hot, you know, and she was really fucking hot. And I just kept overthinking. I just kept thinking too hard about it. Just thinking and thinking and thinking and like, oh, what should I say? What should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And then at some point I realized like I was sitting around on a bench and I realized like I am overthinking too much. And I don't know what clicked in my head, but I realized like the answer was that I just didn't have confidence. I wasn't confident in myself. And then I sat there and I kind of like looked at myself, not literally, but like metaphorically. I had like introspection. I kind of, thought about myself a little bit. And, I thought about my positive qualities, my positive traits, the positive aspects of my character and like what's so good about me and such and things of that nature. And I realized like, I'm a good enough guy that I'm worthy enough to go up and just talk to women and then have them like me, you know. I sound good enough. I look good enough for women to like me, to want to have a conversation with me, to want to communicate with me, for them to want to be with me, And when I thought about it that way, and when I kind of gave myself that increase in self-esteem, that increase in confidence, that increase in almost ego a little bit, I realized that that's all I really needed. And I got up off of that park bench and I started walking around. Sorry if you can hear an airplane, there's an airplane going over my head. But I started walking around and then I seen this one girl and I was like, hey, she's hot. And I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about what I should say, what I should do. I just walked up to her and she happened to be working one of those little ice cream stands, but she had like literally like no business. Nobody was around. So I walked up to her. I was like, hey. And then she was like, oh, you want to get something? I was like, nah, not really. But I told her, I was like, hey, I think you're really pretty, blah, blah, blah. And, we hit it off. We started talking. I told her my name, Josh, obviously, name of the channel. She told me her name. I think it was Farida. Told me she was Mexican, blah, blah, blah. We talked about what we wanted to do. She was a college student too. She was 19. She wants to be an architect, all this other stuff. It was good. It was a good conversation. I told her she was, really pretty, really nice. I ended up getting her number. I ended up texting her a bit. She's replied a little bit. I'll see where it goes, but I don't know. But the number one thing that I noticed is just having confidence, and that's basically all I wanted to say. Some methods that I think help for boosting confidence is, there's 100 different methods you could possibly use, but some things that I have is, working on your appearance. And what I have to say about working on your appearance is there's a level of potential that you can reasonably reach, depending on your genetics, depending on your face, depending on your height, depending on your body, depending on, everything, your teeth, whatever, your nose, whatever, your facial features, whatever it is. There's a level of potential that you have, right? Where not everybody can reasonably achieve being like a level 10, like a 10 out of 10, like perfect, right? But even someone who could have the potential to reach a 10 out of 10, like perfect everything, a person who has that potential, if you don't put in the effort and put in the work to try and reach that level, you're not going to hit it. You're going to be stuck at 6. You're going to be stuck at 5. You're going to be stuck at 4. You know what I mean? You're going to be stuck at 1, right? And I think one thing that boosts confidence is having this like mental knowledge and kind of this mental image in your head and kind of just this mental understanding that you actively put in effort into your appearance and that you actively put in effort to try and look good, that you actively put in effort to try and be the best person, be the best man that you could have been, right? And when you think about that and you realize that that's an aspect or that's something that you attempted to do, that alone itself gives you confidence. Because the idea that you tried, the idea that you put in the work to try and do it itself gives you confidence, you know? Working on your skincare, washing your face, taking a shower, brushing, combing your hair, shaving your face, or like getting like a good, like, I don't know how to describe it, but like when you cut your beard, but you don't fully shave it, but you kind of just make sure that it's neat and well groomed and cut to a certain length, and you take care of yourself, you take care of your body, you work out, you exercise, you do all these things to make yourself better, right? And maybe you won't be a 10 out of 10. That's okay. Not everybody wants a 10 out of 10. Not everybody needs a 10 out of 10. And not everyone is going to be a 10 out of 10. And that's okay. But just the idea that you put in that effort will already make you feel more confident. And that's one of the aspects that helped me in that moment at that time, was just realizing, like, I took the effort to go out that day. I took the effort to, go to the bar, go see a movie, go to an arcade, chill out, talk to my friends. And I took the effort of going out and being social and talking to people. And that alone gives me the confidence that I needed, along with knowing that, like, I looked the best that I could look, or I feel like I look the best that I could look. And that alone gives me that confidence, you know? And I think another thing that gives kind of a confidence boost is just having the understanding that all human beings, man, woman, whatever, any gender, any race, any height, skin color, anything, really is deserving of love and appreciation and affection, and understanding that you as an individual being are worthy of those things, right? And having that self esteem and having that self confidence and having that self respect to understand that it's not only okay to search for that, but it's okay to want it. And when you realize it's okay to want it and it's okay to search for it, that also gives you that kind of confidence of, like, there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody. Because I feel like it can, like, again, the opposite of confidence is anxiety and being anxious and such. And it's easy to get this mindset of, I don't want to talk to a stranger because if I talk to a person, it makes me weird. And only weird people talk to other people. It's like, when you're in the moment, in that second, when you're there as you're living it, that's the kind of thoughts that go through your head. And when you're thinking about it, it sounds like it makes sense. But when you're like sitting in it and when you're thinking about it in retrospect, before the fact or after the fact, you realize how stupid that sounds, right? And it does sound kind of dumb. You know what I mean? All humans need connection. We all need relationships. We all need to talk to somebody. And yeah, man, like I said, that really helped me out though, especially because relatively speaking, it was kind of the worst day in terms of numbers, because usually I'm kind of a volume shooter where I shoot high volume. And I remember, I think it was like last month or maybe it was 2 months ago, but I don't remember. But it was a while ago. I basically did the same thing. I went to, a major city, lots of people walking around, tons of cars, big park where just, old people, young people, all types of people were there, libraries. I went into a library at one point just to check some stuff out, look at some books, you know what I mean? See what's happening, see the type of people there. And I think it was a couple months ago, and I ended up talking to, I think it was 4 to 5 different people. I think it was about 4 to 5 different people, and I ended up getting, like, I think 3 numbers. I talked to this one girl. She was pretty nice. She had a boyfriend, and I forget what her name was, but yeah. And usually I'm a huge volume shooter, but that one day it was just a combination of just not having confidence and being a little bit rusty and not really thinking about it too much. And probably just that I didn't really see any people who I really felt like I could approach at the time, because either they were talking to someone or they were on the phone or they were busy or they were walking somewhere. And I don't like to interrupt people when they're like actively like going somewhere and they're going to do something. I feel like it's just not my type of style. But yeah, and then there were just some women who, I saw them and they just weren't that hot. You know what I mean? Like, I see some women who are like 70 years old walking around, and, like, no offense, but I personally, I'm 24. I don't want to talk to someone who's like 70. Not saying that they're not, anything, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. But yeah, I think that's kind of it, and I just wanted to reflect on that because there's lots of different aspects to it. But I think the number one, most important one is confidence because confidence is the starting point. Confidence is the foundation. Confidence is the thing you kind of start at, and everything else gets built up on. Your conversational skills. The things you talk about, the hobbies you talk about. You know, the things you kind of offer to them. You kind of offer to them because people people think about relationships like not transactionally but kind of transactionally in a way that they think like if I'm going to be friends with this person, what does this person give me that I don't already have in my life? You know what I mean? And I feel like those are topics for another video, topics to kind of expand on in a different video, a different time. But yeah, I feel like confidence is definitely the starting point there. And I probably will mention how important confidence is in other videos. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm happy to be back. Happy to be talking about more regular shit, going back to regular programming. You know what I mean? Happy to finally have that intro in. Yo, I swear, bro. If I forget to add that intro in, if I forget to add that intro, you have permission to slap me across the face if I forget to add that intro, bro. I love that intro so much. I just felt like it didn't really vibe with the general topics of the last couple of videos. You know what I mean? So that's why I didn't throw them in there. And I was also low key a little bit lazy. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to editing these videos, making these videos, etc., etc. So yeah, I think that's it, man. I hope you guys have a good day.